What's up, creepers? I'm Kevin. This is Haunted by Horror, and today I'm talking about Chucky. So, Season 2, Episode 4 of the Chucky television series is titled Death on Denial, and it's this sort of murder mystery thing. It's almost its own standalone episode. This episode is focused on what's going on with Jennifer Tilly and Nika, and with Glenn and Glinda, and it's very cheesy, over the top, very meta, and it's just way different than what we've seen so far in this season. We get properly introduced to Glenn and Glinda in this episode, and both characters are played by Lachlan Watson. And it's always interesting to see an actor do performances of different characters in the same film and see how they differentiate between the two characters, especially when it's two characters like this where they're twins. And I really like that they have a non-binary person playing these non-binary characters. And I feel like the instinct for a lot of people would be to give Glenn more masculine traits and Glinda more feminine traits. And I think that having a non-binary person there playing these parts really helps to curb those instincts, as they have valuable input to put in as far as how to portray these characters. And they do a really good job in both of these roles. They're very different characters. I think Glinda stands out quite a bit more than Glenn. Glenn seems a little more shy and reserved, whereas Glinda is more outspoken and in the mix. There are also a lot of celebrity guest appearances in this episode. Joe Pantoliano is in this, as well as Gina Gershon, who were Meg Tilly's co-stars in the film Bound, which, if I'm not mistaken, was the directorial debut of the Wachowski sisters. And that film kind of plays into the plot of this episode a little bit. Meg Tilly's also in this episode, Jennifer Tilly's real-life sister playing herself. And that's really interesting to see. Sutton Strake is in this episode as well, who I wasn't really familiar with. I guess she's a reality TV star. She's in this episode. And they all are part of the dinner party. The butler Jeeves is murdered in this episode. He's poisoned with arsenic. And if they made an Ask Jeeves joke, it went over my head. And if they didn't make one, I feel it's a missed opportunity. But anyway, this episode has a very Agatha Christie sort of vibe to it. It's definitely an armchair detective sort of episode. And it's way, way different than what we've seen so far. And it's interesting, but it's such a complete departure from what we've been seeing that I was sort of taken aback by it. And so it took me a little bit to get into it, because I just wasn't expecting to see what I saw. Chucky doesn't really play into this episode at all. The only parts that we get with Chucky are of him hosting this sort of talk show thing. And it's another sort of meta thing. And it's the only part of the episode that completely doesn't fit within the episode. And he has WWE wrestler Liv Morgan come on the episode, and he talks to her about it. And it just feels so out of place. And I don't understand. You could totally cut those parts out of this episode, and it would make no difference to the episode at all. Except Chucky wouldn't be in the episode. Or at least the Chucky doll wouldn't be in the episode. Because there are parts where Nika sees blood and becomes Chucky, and so he's in that. We find out in this episode that Glenn and Glinda had discovered a few months prior that Tiffany was holding Nika captive in this house, and they have a plan to help Nika escape. They put her in a wheelchair and give her prosthetic arms, and Nika sees some blood, and Chucky comes out and tries to shoot Jennifer Tilly / Tiffany, but there are no bullets in the gun. While Chucky is hosting his TV show and sort of doing a deep dive on what's happened in the episode, we discovered that it was actually Glinda that poisoned the champagne with arsenic and killed Jeeves, the butler, who was actually acting as a security guard to keep everyone out of the room that Nika was in. And that it was actually Gina Gershon who emptied the gun of bullets because, in a fit of jealous rage, because she and Joe Pantoliano are both in love with Jennifer Tilly, so she emptied the gun into him and then gave the gun to Glinda as a gift. Glenn and Glinda were both working with Nika to help her escape, but Glinda was actually also working with Chucky to help Chucky kill Tiffany. And in the end, Glenn is left there with Jennifer Tilly while Glinda and Nika escape in a van driven by Kyle, because Kyle's not dead, as we find out in this episode. Or, have already sort of known. Um, I never thought she was dead. I've said that in previous videos. And that's sort of where we're left at the end of this episode. We don't see anything that's going on with Jake and Devin and Lexi and any of that stuff in the school. And like I said, it's almost a standalone sort of episode. It'll definitely play a part in what happens going forward, and that'll be interesting to see. It was wild. It was a wild episode. It was very different. I definitely feel that this felt more in line with the Of Chucky movies than with the Child's Play movies. And for me, I've always preferred the Child's Play movies to the Of Chucky movies. When Bride of Chucky came out, it actually took me a while before I really came around to liking that movie and accepting that that was the direction the franchise was taking, because it was such a huge deviation from what had preceded it. Like I said, it was very different from what we've gotten before in this season. Very over the top and campy. I thought that Lachlan Watson was terrific in this episode, and I'm really glad that in this series there's better representation than there was in Seed of Chucky, because it just didn't quite hit the mark in Seed of Chucky, and I feel that they're doing a lot better job now. And so that's good. That's something really good. I'm interested to see what else happens in the rest of this season. If it's as crazy as this episode was. Well, that's all I have to say for now. I've already reviewed all of the episodes of this season leading up to this one, and I have a playlist that you can check out and watch that. I also have a playlist of reviews that I did of all of the season 1 episodes if you want to check that out. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, can you please hit the like button? You can also subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this, and turn on notifications to be updated whenever I upload a new video or I go live. And until next time, keep on creeping on.